right, we're so glad to be here tonight. Joining me here is Tammy Shoemake. Y'all can go ahead and welcome her. So Tammy has been a friend of mine for several years and has been a mentor mom to me. And we just were excited. If you were at Gather last year, you might remember that she was on our panel. And I just love the wisdom of someone that's just a little bit further down the road from you. My kids are in elementary school, and for her to have kids just a little bit older, just to share those life wisdom. And so we're just really excited that you're here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Could you share a little bit about your family?
Well, I've been married to Lance for 25 years, and I have 4 kids. We just launched our first to college, Austin. He's 19. He's at Dallas Baptist University.
Yep, there they are.
Yes. And then there's Liberty. She's a junior at Rockwall High School. She's 16. And then there's Dub. He's a freshman at Rockwall, and his real name is Wesley, but transpired into Dub. He will not answer to Wesley unless he's in trouble. And then there's Glory. She's the 4th child. She's 12, and she's in 6th grade.
So you have a college student, 2 teenagers, and a preteen, I guess.
Yes.
That's
it's
a lot.
Busy time.
That's a lot in one house. Okay, so as moms, when you registered, we all had to answer some questions that were asked on the registration form. One of those was, as a mom, what is something that you want to do better at, and something that you feel like is a large struggle? And it was really overwhelming as we reviewed the answers, because almost everybody put patience. Would y'all agree? So I think it was pretty widely spread that everybody needs more patience. But then the other thing was that people wanted to spend more intentional time with their children. And so I think that that is something that is a struggle. I know we're both working moms, and so trying to find that balance and keeping our patience, especially with 4 kids, can be challenging. So what are some things that have helped you along the way that you can speak into on that?
Well, I'm not always patient. Let's start there. There's days when I'm more patient than others, and when I'm not patient is when I need to sit back and evaluate, why am I feeling so impatient right now? What is it that's setting me off? I think a lot of times, am I tired? Am I overwhelmed by things that don't really matter? I have to look at my children and evaluate that as well and go, what are they doing that's making me impatient? I think oftentimes we find our identity in our children and the way they behave and the expectations that we put on them, expectations versus reality of what is true. When my kids were little, I know that oftentimes when they were misbehaving in public, it was embarrassing. And I had to stop and go, why are they misbehaving right now? And it's 2 o'clock and they've missed their nap. And perhaps we kept them out late, especially Glory, my younger one, went to a lot of middle school sports and was up late. And so having a meltdown and trying to sit back and evaluate exactly what was it that was making them react that way or respond that way. And having to learn to find my identity vertically in Him, and everything that Kate talked about was perfect. Just finding who we are in Christ and remembering that versus finding my identity in my child is very hard to do, but it's a good thing to be reminded of. So I don't think patience is something that you really ever arrive at.
Yeah.
It is a fruit of the Spirit, and it's God at work in us. And I think our children is one way that the Lord makes us more dependent on Him for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as far as patience goes, there's times when Lance and I will look at each other and we'll go, that response might require some counseling. So we're going to have to go in the bedroom and evaluate that. And I'm not talking about just the kids. I'm talking about ourselves. So there are times when you respond and you don't always respond right. And I think that's when grace comes in too.
Absolutely.
Of showing grace to our children. For me, I've had to learn that they are kids. they're not going to come out and be doing everything right, even when we think we're doing it right and we're teaching them right. I remember being almost personally offended when one of my teenagers was struggling with something, and I was kind of like, well, I've taught you right from wrong, and that's our family value, and we've gone through this, and why would you do it wrong? And, it's so almost arrogant of me to say, and having to learn that, we want our kids to want and need Jesus more than they want and they need us. And that's something that I'm learning. Because as a mom, I think we want to take it all on. We expect them to react and respond in a certain way because we think that we should always do it right. And as a young mom, I remember just sitting and even crying with a 1-week-old and saying, I just want to do it right. I just want to do it right. And the baby's still crying, and I'm doing what the book said to do. And I don't understand, And so I think that's, as a mom of 4, with 4 different personalities and different stages of life, I've had to really grow into knowing that it's really not about me. I get to be a tool in the process of the parenting. God is working in me and through me. I think parenting is one of the most sanctifying things that you're going to do outside of just marriage and your walk with the Lord. It's just one of the tools in that process. So, as far as intentionality, I know I didn't touch on that. It does get hard to have one-on-one time with each child. So I think there are just different ways that you have to plan time. Simple things like going to the grocery store. We started doing a family game night. Oftentimes my older kids would say they had homework, and we're like, really, you're choosing homework over game night? Okay, you're going to give us 30 minutes. And really being committed to that time. And usually before the 30 minutes was up, we're all laughing and having a good time together. But just really planning that time.
You have to be intentional. Like, you have to plan it or it's not going to happen.
Right, exactly.
So one of the other questions that we were asked on the registration was, what is something that we worry about our children? And the responses were varied, but overall that we were most worried about the safety of our children. We were worried that the rest of the world was going to corrupt them. And we were also worried that we as their mom were ruining the rest of their life, basically. So, which, kids don't come with an instruction manual, so you're just trying it out as you go and trying to figure out what to do. But what kind of wisdom do you have for a mom that's sitting here tonight just really feeling a struggle there, where they are worried, maybe they have a teenager and they're starting down a road of making bad choices, or maybe they have little ones and they feel so inadequate to be a mom to them, and they feel like their past and the mistakes they made are going to be repeated in this child. Like, what kind of wisdom do you have to share with parents that might have that fear?
Well, I don't know if I have a lot of wisdom, but I have some experience in that. I remember being a young mom and moms my age with teenagers saying, oh, just don't take it for granted. Before you know it, they're going to be teenagers. And I'm going, I'm just trying to make it to nap time, okay? Let's just, like, if you could just let me get my kids to the car. And now, having teenagers, you do have that fear and that feeling of, have I taught them enough? And even just less control. And I think that's something that I've also been learning is the control of, I don't have control. I can trust and I can teach and I can train, but ultimately, the kids are going to have to decide to do the right thing. And the truth is, like I said before, is that they don't always do the right thing. And I don't always do the right thing. And as adults that know the truth, we still do the wrong thing sometime. And we know the right things to do. We don't always say the right things. We don't always respond in the right ways. But there's grace in it, and learning to lean in and say you're sorry when you need to say you're sorry, and admitting when you're wrong. And for me, just being able to say, I am finding my identity here and not here. has been really key for me in that. So not fearing. I think that for me too is just trusting in what God's giving me each day, because when I fear tomorrow and the what ifs and the all the things that are influencing, I become overwhelmed and maybe even anxious, and I feel like it's just too much. And when I realize that what God's giving me today is enough, and I can't really fear tomorrow because today is enough. And so that word today becomes really important in my life from one day at a time.
Yeah, God's going to give you what you need.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back in time down memory lane. So it was about 4 years ago this time that I first got to know you better. So I knew of you, but I didn't know you real well. And you started a group of moms of preschool age, would you say, children. And we met once a month at La Madeleine, and it was a random group of moms. Like, I didn't know most of them. And you started pouring into us that year. So from January through December, and you went through a different family value every month that we talked about while we met. And tell us a little bit more about why you wanted to reach out to young moms and why that was on your heart.
Well, when I had young kids, I was fortunate enough to be a part of a group like that that met for about 3 years. That I facilitated friends of mine that got together and shared a family value. And it's all about that, going back to being intentional. I realized that I don't have to just make it through the day and just try to get to the next season with my parenting, that I can actually be intentional with that, and that I should be, and not perfectly, but at least be working towards intentionality. And with that, meeting together with a group of other moms that were in the same season as I was, being able to talk about those values and not expecting that my children would know, if I valued family time, what am I doing to promote family time? And if I value generosity, what exactly am I doing to teach and show generosity in my family? And I think that was key, is just coming together and sharing ideas, talking about those values, and making sure that I truly understood what those values meant and how that plays out in my family. Was important. And so getting to be a part of that was really valuable to me in my kids' younger years. And I do think that it looks different, obviously, in the preschool and toddler years and even elementary years, and than it does now. But I just felt like there was a need, and I started talking about it with young moms like yourself and several that I've seen tonight. It's been so fun to see them, and just said, do you want to come and hear what I've learned? And I can share some ideas, and I'm sure you'll hear others, and you'll have other moms to communicate with and spur each other on. And that's really how it happened. So it ended up being about a 2-year process of meeting once a month, and so proud of what it's become with Gather and how you've taken it and made it into something that more and more moms could be a part of.
Yeah,
Really
so basically, a lot of y'all may not know this, but after I finished that year commitment with Tammy, my son was starting kindergarten, and I was really just praying about what ministry God had for me next. And I really didn't know exactly what direction, but I kept meeting more moms in our neighborhood that didn't have what Tammy had taught. And when I went through that monthly study of different family values with her, it really opened my eyes to really being intentional, like she was saying, like not letting the days and the weeks and the months and the years just fly by without intentionally teaching your children certain family values like responsibility and generosity and gratitude, and being courageous and all these different things. And so that every month I just focused on a different one. So after we finished meeting, I really wasn't sure what God had in store for me, but really started God telling me, there's some other moms that could use this that are in your neighborhood. So I just took what Tammy had taught us and retyped it and copied it and handed it out and invited some moms from my neighborhood to come over. And we met for a year doing that, and it was a really cool time just to see the truths that she had been mentored, and she was a younger mom, and then she helped pour into me, and then I was able to share with other moms that were in the same life stage as well. And so that is actually, we started calling the meeting Gather, and so that's how that actually all came about. And so it's been really cool to see how that's all happened, and I thank you for your investment in my life and how you have cast that vision for really being intentional in our children, and to see what God's doing with that now. So y'all thank Tammy for being here today. Just put it there, yeah. Gather is a neighborhood community of moms that meet regularly in their homes to encourage each other, to support each other, to help each other become more intentional in their homes and in their families as a mom and as a wife. Sometimes as moms you feel very lonely and you feel like you're in this by yourself, and so we want a place where moms can come and feel loved on. The Gathers usually meet once a month, and they are for just 1 hour, so it's not a huge time commitment. We provide an introductory 12-month curriculum of family values that are faith-based, so that a mom can cover things with her children over the year and focus on one thing a month, and make it real simple, that when you leave Gather that you don't have a whole bunch of things you feel guilty for not doing, but that you have one thing that you're encouraged to go home and do better in your home. If you want to be a leader of a Gather in your neighborhood, it's very easy to facilitate. You don't have to prepare anything. You can just read through the curriculum and print out handouts for each of the moms. So we would love for you to catch that vision and to start a Gather in your neighborhood, and to allow moms to come together to become more intentional in their homes and in their families. All right, so joining me on the couch now is Leanne Scheibe and Marie Webb. Y'all welcome them. This is so fun. I feel kind of like Oprah or something. I get all these different guests like coming up. So I don't have favorite things for everybody, but you know. Okay, so Leanne, when I had my Gather group just in my house, she lived in another neighborhood, but she started coming because she was invited by a friend that lived in my neighborhood. And you were interested in starting a Gather in your neighborhood, and you were like, what would that look like? And I was like, I have no idea. I'm just doing something that Tammy taught me. So tell me, what was most appealing to you to starting a Gather in your neighborhood in the Shores?
I loved that Gather would spur me to meet my neighbors and to build a tribe. I loved what I saw when I went, and I wanted that. I think the thing I loved the most was that because it's not a Bible study, it was an outreach to my neighborhood. Right. And so the women that might not come to church with me or are on a very different journey in life, mothers, but maybe not a follower of Christ or maybe new to the faith, would have a welcome and safe place to come. And we have commonality. We all want to raise great kids. Right. And so it's a great place to be able to be encouraging and intentional and love on each other. And I just fell in love with the idea.
That's awesome. So, Marie, you have a little bit different story. You were here last year. You came together. You were dragged here. Okay.
I was.
So
Thanks, Kyla and Allie.
didn't really want to be here, but after you left, God started pounding on your heart, telling you needed to start a Gather in Greenville. Tell me more about that.
Yes, well, I knew that I wanted to have something, but I didn't really know what that looked like till I came here that night. And so the first thing I did was really prayed about it, and I got rid of all the reasons why I shouldn't or couldn't, have a Gather in my home, like my house is too small, or I have a hard time keeping my house clean most of the time.
Don't we all?
And, but I got rid of all of that and the doubt that nobody would come because maybe it's not a need. And I just asked my husband, because he is the MVP of Gather Greenville, if it wasn't for him taking the kids out for the evening so that women could come and have a safe place, it just wouldn't happen. So once he got on board, I created a Facebook page, added a few people, and then I took these very nifty cards And so just in walking around in my daily life, I was at Discount Tire, like getting my tires rotated, and I met a mom there, and we struck up a conversation, geared it towards Gather, invited her to come. I was Skyping with a friend in Nigeria, Viola, and just talking with her, and she got so excited, and she wanted to start a Gather group.
So we have a Gather group in Nigeria.
We do.
Isn't that awesome? I tried to get her to record a video, but maybe next year we'll have her like live or something from Nigeria.
So just going about in my daily life, and as I was going, just making purposeful conversations, but then also being very deliberate in going to outreach ministries like the Rafa Clinic, which is a pregnancy resource center.
Right.
And I left her, the director, with a stack of cards and explained to her about Gather, and she got really excited because it could be like a discipleship tool. And so she connects clients from Rafa to Gather. And so it's really neat having this mix of, people who are churched, but unchurched, unconnected, people who sadly, have been burned by the church, but
Right.
Gather is a safe place. And it's kind of healing for them that I've seen, where they're able to maybe be brave enough to go back into a church, which is,
Right.
great. You're wanting to lead them to Christ. And Gather has been
But they'll come to your
an
house
amazing
versus
tool.
maybe they wouldn't come to the church.
right.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Leanne, you started your first group in the Shores, and then your husband got transferred or was working a long way away in McKinney, so y'all decided to move there.
Yes.
So you are now starting your second Gather group in McKinney.
Woohoo! Any McKinney people, come see me.
So tell me about what that looks like as far as you're trying to meet new moms in the community that you're living in now. So how does Gather help with that?
Well, because Gather is new in McKinney and there's still one, pretty much everybody gets an invitation. So I am so thankful to have just a co-leader that was interested in helping, and she has a young daughter, 1 year old, and I have a little bit older, and so we are inviting people in different circles. We can, invite at moms and prayer groups and at extracurricular activities. I use those little cards as well. And we have both met some lovely ladies that we would never have had the opportunity to meet before. Some of them are Christians. Some have a lot of questions, but they are coming because they love the idea of being intentional, and they're getting God's word, and it's very palatable. And it's not judgy. I love that we are there to encourage each other. We have enough judgment
Right.
out in the world. Gather is a safe place.
Right.
And for me, it has just been a blessing because it has kind of helped to ground me and settle me in a new city. So I look forward to it each month, and I get to meet new people. So if you're new to this area, or if you have recently moved, feel free. Take the opportunity to start a new Gather. It is a wonderful way to meet people in your community.
Yeah, absolutely. So Marie, you use some creative ways to, like the Rafa Clinic, to grow your group. But as a busy mom, a lot of moms are probably sitting out here thinking like, well, that all sounds great, but I have enough on my plate right now. I don't really have time to do something like this. So what is some ways that you have tried to make it doable for an average mom to be able to do?
Well, it is doable because, as my friends will tell you, I am way the opposite of type A. I'm not very organized. But some things that I did early on was identify some of the hindrances that would keep me from being consistently able to hold a Gather in my home. And one of those is like snacks really stress me out. Like just thinking about preparing stuff, it just like stresses me out.
That's okay.
So what I did was, early on, I reached out to some of the more seasoned ladies in my church, and I'm going to say seasoned because old is a dirty word. And I explained to them what I was trying to have going and what Gather was about, and they graciously came on board to provide snacks for me every month, so I don't have to worry about that. And as far as doable in your home, opening up your doors, your house does not have to be perfect. Your kids don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect, The women who are coming, they're not gonna come to judge how clean your house is or how
Right.
perfect your children behave or how you dress. They're coming because they want to be in community. There's a hunger to feel like you're a part and not alone in your motherhood gig. Um, Another thing is, speaking of tribe, like, for me, it's been doable because I have these core people like Lauren and Karen and Valerie who they just know all the bad, the ugly, the good sides of me, and somehow they love me anyway. They've cried with me in my brokenness, celebrated when, the happy seasons, and they genuinely just want to see me succeed. And so they encourage me and build me up, and then I can then in turn encourage and build up the women who come together. And I think that's a very real need, is for us to find our core people, our tribe, so that they can love us well, love our kids well, and then, we in turn can love them well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and something that I always tell moms that lead gathers is, like she was saying, your house doesn't have to be perfect. I read somewhere that someone said to take a baby wipe, just wipe down all the counters to get anything sticky off, and then take a laundry basket and pick up anything that people could step on or sit on. And then you're good. Just open the door and let them in.
And be encouraged that gather will look different for each of you. The co-leader that I have likes to host but not guide the facilitation questions as much, so I tend to do that. Others may completely do things differently, where they flip-flop houses, or you have one person who leads, but then there's a tribe that kind of handles the Facebook for you, or things like that. It can look however you want it to look, so there's just a lot of freedom in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the last year, we have had over 35 groups start all over. So a lot in this area. Yeah, yay God. And then all over Texas. We've had some outside of Texas, and then Sweet Viola in Nigeria. So it's been really exciting to see how God has taken this desire that moms have for community. We're built for community. And so for moms to be able to not be lonely, to get out of their home and just 1 hour a month to go meet with other moms and to really feel encouraged, to be intentional in their home that month. We try to make Gather not overwhelming. We want you to leave with one thing every month that you want to go home and do better in your home that month. So it's not something where it's a to-do list or you feel like you've failed at everything, but just that you want to focus on one thing that next month. And so it has been really exciting to see just that vision catch on with moms like y'all. And so I'm excited, tonight that you guys are going to get an opportunity to be a part of that as well. So if y'all would thank them for being here.